welcome to your Daily Game Face. I am Dr. Kim Lannon.
Why are you smiling?
Why? Okay, no smiling.
Okay. No, you can smile.
No smiling. No smiling. I'm here
It
with Lou.
seemed like a mischievous smile.
Oh, well, that's because I had to shift. What did I have to shift from?
Emergency.
Nope, no emergencies today. I was on the phone in the car, and I came in annoyed. Why? Because my primary care, I'm going to tell you why. My primary care was switched on me, unbeknownst to me, after 20 years because...
Wow.
But it was a incorrect move on their part because this is what they do. It was not my primary care. It was the insurance company. So I was on the phone with the insurance company and I was maintaining my composure.
So they just said...
Which is why I'm running late, because I had my own emergency today, not about anybody else, but I actually had to take care of myself because it is the month and year of May.
Well, you made time for it. So.
I made time for it because I had to. And
so
I
just said you had a new PC like that?
They sent me a letter stating this man in a place that's like 35 miles from me, which I would never pick, off the cuff. And I called my primary care that I have and said, what's going on? They're like, I don't know. I said, did we have a falling out? And they were like, nope. I'm like, okay. So then I called the insurance company, and the insurance company is trying to tell me that my primary care is out of network. So of course I look it up. No, they're not.
Wow.
So I didn't have enough time to complete the call, but this lovely man, Alex, who I thought was very lovely, trying to help me when he couldn't help me. And I was a little frustrated, which I didn't show my frustration because I kept my composure, because I'm kind and compassionate and I'm female, and didn't lose myself to the anger side of me. I was trying to be nice, but he actually ended the phone call with like a little snark to him. And I was like, because I was like, thank you so much, Alex. Have a wonderful day. But I wasn't being snarky, and he hung up. And so yeah.
Well, he had many other kind of wonderful people to get to.
Well, he can. I have so many things in my head bubble. I do. I have so many things in my head bubble, and I just with it. And it wasn't the primary care; it was the insurance company. I can't. When I have to deal with them on a daily basis with just people, because I have to make time for that too in my very busy schedule that I have no other time for. But and I had to put it in for myself. It's just the insurance companies are 30 years of doing this. And
I can imagine. Yeah, you have all that other battle to go through on the other end. Yeah. I forgot about that.
This was easy because it's for me, but I'm on the phone sometimes for hours during the week. Let me add 70 hours plus with paperwork and insurance companies and online. That reminds me, I have to call another insurance company today that's a third party because they've locked me out of my billing account online. That just reminded me. So let's talk about today. Adversity in the day.
Adversity.
I wasn't really going to talk about that, but I was going to talk about something else. But it is an adverse morning that's been sitting that I had to fix because I'm not going to this random person that's 35 miles away. That I have this person I've been with forever. She and I are simpatico. We're good.
You can't just do that. Just change your primary.
That's what I said.
And they can't pick them for you.
And he did. They did. Not him. Not Alex. Alex did not pick. But he was like, this is a good doctor. I said, really? How do you know that? He goes, well, he has good ratings. I'm like, that's lovely. I love that he has good ratings. But I'm not driving 35 miles when I was literally 2 miles from my last place. My place moved. That's one of the things. They moved to a different location. He tried to tell me that because they moved, they went out of network. I'm like,
because the address changed?
Yeah.
All right.
That was the reason.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're going to have this. I had to get off because clearly it was making me run late. And I just didn't have time for the shenanigans of the bull.
A little less late than usual, though.
That's because
you're on time late.
You know what? It's because I didn't have an emergency. And when I have emergencies, they come first.
Yep.
And so I have to make sure I make time for all my emergencies in all of my, busy lives that I can't imagine that anyone could imagine how I could do that.
But that's another topic.
It is.
Yeah.
So it was funny because, you know how, what I was going to say is the reason why, when I came in, we were having this other
Yeah.
discussion. And when we go on live, I put on my game face.
Yes.
And that was what I was saying, is that people have commented, because some people know like about other things in my like other life, right? And they're like, you always have like this thing going on online. You never seem. And I'm like, that's because
Yep.
all my life I was trained at an early age that you go from that to this.
Yep.
And you have no time to spare to not be in la.
Wow.
Because you can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to, So people always say to me, you're always smiling.
Game face.
Game face.
Yep.
There's a reason why my business is called Gameface Sport Consulting.
Yep.
You know why? Because
you're good at putting on a game face.
I'm always good at putting, and I teach athletes how to do it. I teach regular everyday people how to do it, because you know what? Life hands you a lot of shit, and you got to be able to pull your shit together, and you still got to go through despite having whatever the adversity of the day is. And sometimes you have, I just worked my hair out of my head. Sometimes you have a lot of adversity and sometimes you don't. But I think on a daily basis, there's usually something adverse.
Having that alter ego is so valuable.
Well, it is. And people think, oh, is that really a thing? You should be your authentic self. Your authentic self is exactly whatever is going on in the moment, and you're being true to it. I just had this very long conversation, and I did cut you off, so I'm going to.
No.
I just had this long conversation with my class. I always get into this authentic self conversation about how to be your authentic self. And the question gets very philosophical and very theologic sometimes about the fact that, can you be your authentic self when you're in stress, or when you're anxious, or when you're in addiction, or when you're in depression? I'm like, yes, because all those states are in the here and now, in the present. They are your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great debate. I love it. It's one of my favorite classes. It was 2 weeks ago, and I've sort of perpetuated with them. I love talking about that, because if you're in the moment of whatever it is, you're still being your authentic self to the moment.
Yeah.
Whether your state is anxious, depressed, happy, sad, it's whatever it is in that moment.
It's the best part of my job, about being able to just set things down for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours and be that person you need to be.
Well, yeah. And then, good, bad, or indifferent, if you're able to set yourself aside and just go to your core of who you are, and just have those moments of, like I said last week, self-reflection, and do your body scan and find that, just finding yourself. It definitely.
But getting that skill set is useful, because you can apply it in many different ways. So I can apply. I don't need to be on the job to go into the present and being able to shed stuff that's useless at the moment.
Yes, but yes. If you do not have the skill set to do that, which many people don't, that doesn't mean they can't get it. But many people just deflect and run away and hide.
Yep.
And disconnect from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is to the point that prior to the show, my comments that will be left off air, my comments about
Thanks for the update. Yeah.
Human nature.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want you to out me.
Yeah.
Is that people they just disconnect. And by disconnecting, they become the things that we were talking about.
Yeah.
They become these somewhat transactional, robotic, insensitive, lack of compassion. You see where I was going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without being short
Yeah.
with it. But it also shortens up the fact that people aren't connected to themselves. And that is one of the things in my practice I work on with people, because I try to do the integrative medical and mental health together, is how to be really connected to yourself. And people they've learned, you get taught early on to disconnect from yourself, because you're not allowed to have the feelings, right? Anger. Yay, anger. You can have anger, which is amazing, but not as a woman.
Oh, I disagree.
No, well, but so I'm going to say that women are still trained socially that that's not a thing, right?
Yeah.
But when there is anger, wrath of a woman.
Yep.
Right? There's nothing like a scorned, hell hath no fury
Teenager.
You don't even have a teenager anymore. She's not a teenager.
I know.
But there is a reason why hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned, because we're suppressed. Females are suppressed psychologically still, and men are suppressed. Boys are suppressed into no emotion. So they're both disconnect.
Yeah.
Right. And even though there's a trend and shift here and there in psychology and in sociology to, females and males should be able to like have all the feels, we still have that social like norm thing and like disconnect, don't feel that way, you're not allowed to feel that way. Then we went through the period of time with like feel all the feels, and then we got into like use your inner voice.
Well, and what that does is it atrophies your ability to process it.
Right. Well, and cognitive processing theory. I was talking about this with a client yesterday about having trauma anxiety, and she and I are doing CBT together, cognitive behavioral therapy, but I also introduced cognitive processing therapy to her yesterday. And there's a difference. It's still using the same kind of thing. If you're familiar with that, are you familiar with that?
Vaguely.
Okay. So the
Could use the update.
So the CPT, cognitive processing theory or in therapy, is really actually just exactly how it sounds. It's just processing the thought process of trauma and getting to the point of like, why are you thinking that way? And it gets to the 3 R's that I always talk about, like how is it rational, reasonable, or realistic? The negative mindset, and how to kind of combat that negative mindset about worry, meta worry, which is what I call that, right? The meta worry. I worry about worry. If I don't have anything to worry about, I worry about the fact that I don't have anything to worry about, right? So I worry about the worry. And that gets the person into an adverse, authentic moment for themselves because they create so much anxiety. And I have repeated this many times, as you know, is worry is like praying for something bad to happen.
Yep.
And you got to kind of be able to take care of that. And my clients often will ask me, this is one of the most predominant things I get asked all the time, because I have that kind of similar client base of, I worry about what other people think about me. And how do I also sit with anxiety that won't go away because the situation hasn't changed, or the trauma is still there, or things like that. And they get combined in as like, one thing. And so that was actually going to be my topic today. Did you like how I did that?
I did. Nice segue.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a while, a couple days,
Yep.
But before I get into that, the processing is just taking and really actually not just doing, I think, therefore I feel, therefore I have a behavior, which is CBT, right? I'm itching my nose because all of a sudden it's freezing in here. Do you think,
freezing?
Do you think it's freezing in here?
No.
Okay, it's me then. But the processing piece adds this layer of really going through and thinking through, why do I think this way? Why is it reasonable to think this way? What is it that I'm getting out of it thought-wise? How does it lead me down those 2 roads? I talk about the hard roads. One ends in crash and burn, and the other one. I had a client yesterday tell me that she doesn't like either of my roads. She would like to go off-roading. And I said, there's no off-roading.
I like it.
And I said, well, both of those roads have the off-roading bumps on them. It's just a matter of which one you pick. And she goes, no, I want a different road. And I was laughing. I was like, I love that. She's like, I'm going off-roading. I'm like, but that road might not be the one that we want either.
Disabuse me of
I
this.
love that.
If I'm wrong, but
did you say disabuse me?
Disabuse me of this if I'm wrong.
Okay.
If I've misunderstood this concept.
I love that.
But the beginning of processing is so easy. It's just put it in words.
So says you. Well,
journal it. Talk about. I mean,
people are very secretive.
Well, I know, but in the sessions, I know you hate the question, but the session, how does that make you feel? It's enough. I know everyone hates the question, but just getting you to tell how it makes you feel. Oftentimes, I'm guessing you watch people, they start the sentence, and by the end of the sentence, they've figured out what the issue is.
Sometimes. I wouldn't say, I would say 50% of the time.
But they're more enlightened about what's going on.
Well, I think
I'm mad. I'm not really mad, but and I just go through the whole word thing. And
well, I do a lot of wordplay with people because words matter.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would say, and my clients would have to say, I help people find other words that they're not familiar enough with to use in context. They know the words, but they don't necessarily use them to describe linguistically how they're feeling or how they're thinking.
Finding the word from the emotion is processing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also making sure that a person, if we're doing feelings, is talking about feelings, not how they're thinking, because people will often say things like, I feel that this is going to be like, they go into a different, I feel, and I go, no, I feel Now give me a feeling word. And they're like, what do you mean? I say, you just said, I feel that you think,
Yeah.
right? As an example, I'm like, no, you can't feel that I think.
I'm worried that you think.
Right. I
Yeah.
say, tell me how you feel. And they're like, I am telling you. I'm like, no. Say, I feel, and just put in one word. And then they'll go, sad. Okay. Okay. And then I go, okay. And then when you feel sad, what does that make you feel? And they're like, sad. I'm like, no, but okay.
Yeah.
When you're sad, then what happens? Good morning, Leanne. She's got construction on all of her roads.
Oh.
So she's off-roading. She's got all of her roads. Construction on all. I love that. I love that. That was great.
Good for her.
Oh, well, exactly. I love that you have construction on all your roads. That's perfect. This is great. It's like another chapter for the book I'm still not writing. I actually started, by the way.
Did you?
I did.
How much fun was that?
I wrote a page.
That's a start.
I know, right? I wrote a page and put it down. I was like, oh, that was hard.
Page a day, and a year you'll have a book.
Oh, I know. Well, I didn't think of it that way, but I love Leanne's commentary, though. That was awesome.
I didn't get it at first, but
I know. I saw it in your face. You're like, oh, she was late to the show because I saw it. And I was like, nope. And that's why I said, nope, she's off-roading.
No, I was associating because yesterday we had a road race in Newburyport. You people.
Oh, us
you
people.
Screwed up the whole town.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we screwed. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So coming back to where was I? I got sidetracked on Leanne's
get
roads.
People to say how they feel.
Oh yeah. So getting the feeling word or getting the thought, like they're different, and very specifically getting someone to process a feeling, you have to get to what the actual feeling is. And people are so disconnected that they have such a limited range of feelings. So I have an emoji chart in my office that I often use.
Point to an emoji.
And I say, don't laugh, because people have a hard time getting past just the colloquial. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel happy. I feel
because they're not supposed to feel angry.
And this is what I was saying is that the disconnect is taught early, is that anger is there. That's just the word. And I'm like, well, anger is like a big word. So are we frustrated? Are we irritated? Are we agitated? Are we flummoxed? Are we, there's so many different words. And I have quite the emoji chart that I have built over the years to give people different things. If someone's excited, not using just excited, but using elated, relieved. I mean, there's such a continuum of words. And me, I love words, and I'm very much about use the right word because I want to know what you really think and feel. So words matter. And I love linguists. So linguistical things, like, because when you say something, I'm always about, you just said that, and so I'm taking you for what you said. But people will often say, well, that's not what I meant. But
so let's get there.
So we need to know what you really mean, because the intention behind that is important. And so if you're trying to express yourself to tell me how you feel about something anxiety provoking or something traumatic, but you're using other words to describe that aren't getting there, it's going to be harder for me to tell how to help you. Or you can tell when people use words to distract away from getting there, because they want to get there, but then they're so afraid of it that it scares them off, because
they can't get that emotion. They're not supposed to have that emotion.
Well, they're afraid
to have that feeling.
Well, they're afraid of it, right? So what I was going to talk about really specifically today was how to break the worry trap of, like, how to stop caring about what other people think, because at the end of the day, that's what the disconnect comes from, is because we have worried about, we worry about worry, but then we really care about what other people think. Therefore, we don't express ourselves the right way, and we don't get rid of our spot in that stuck zone, or whatever you want to call it, that rut. So I just figured, okay, I'm going to put together this list of, like, okay, how do you do this? Because everyone wants the how-to, right? Everyone goes to the self-help books, they read about everything, but there's
YouTube
really
videos.
there's rarely the tips of how to do that. Everyone's like, okay, they wait, or they flip to the back of the book waiting for, like, where are the tips or where are the tricks, right? So, I mean, still nothing replaces talking to somebody and really working it through and processing. But what I do as a brief thing, and I can give this as a brief thing, is, so I always have people focus on their own goals and values. When we're worried about what other people think, I say, okay, first step towards breaking anything away from, okay, how do I let go of this anxiety about worrying about, this thing that then might be impacting the fact that other people are judging me or might judge me or whatever, is to focus on what is your goal for you? What is your value for you? And do they align? Now, that kind of sounds ethereal. So this is where when people don't like to journal, but it's easier to make a list, I say, make a list, go into your notes on your phone or take a piece of paper over the whole week. Like I say, from this week to next week, when you come in, make a list of what you want for you, such as like, I'm going to give basic examples like career goal, a personal aspiration, an outcome that you want, like depending on the scenario. And what happens is this helps you focus in writing, because when your brain sees it on paper, it lets go of it holding in your brain. So it makes more room for processing because it allows you to let go, and it helps you to focus on what matters most, because you kind of get a lot of stuff out, but then it will whittle down to, oh, here's some really important things, right? And it gets you to what is important in your life instead of worrying about what others are doing and thinking about you. You're thinking about what's important to you.
Right.
And how we're not about how to get there yet, but this is the step. This is like the first step of
shifting your focus.
It's shifting it, right? So it focuses you to stay on, here we go, Leanne, to stay on the path rather than trying to please everyone and going down the people pleasing road, which is one of those roads that we have construction on, right? I love that. It's about really focusing on you. And we are trained, going back to the beginning, we're trained to not focus on ourselves, especially females. We are trained to focus on helping others and putting ourselves second, third, fourth, fifth. My hands like, no. But to please everyone around us is impossible. But we are all trained pretty significantly socially to worry about or think about how is this going to impact other people, which is fine, because we want to make sure that our behavior, if we're impacting someone, is we're accountable and responsible. But I'm really speaking more about the fact that we get these committees that are nameless, faceless people in our head, or sometimes they have names and faces, but nonetheless, we put too much emphasis on how much they matter in terms of how our lives are running. And if you stay true to yourself in the moment and you're authentic to your own self, it doesn't matter if you do X, Y, or Z. It doesn't matter if you say no and they get upset. I have a client I'm working with right now that she has a really hard time talking to one of her family members and is afraid of their reaction all the time. So she avoids talking to them about things and keeps it really superficial, but she has something really big to talk to them about, and she's been building up the courage to do it. And I over and over, and I think she gets frustrated with me because I keep saying, what's the biggest fear? What's the biggest fear? And she keeps saying, well, they're going to get upset with me. I'm like, you have to be able to learn to sit with the uncomfortability of someone being upset, not with you. You're internalizing that it's you. They're upset that you're not doing what they want. You're upset because they're not, happy with your saying blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean anything about you. That just means that they don't like that. And they can be uncomfortable and they can be angry and they can be all the things, but you have to just be like, this is my truth. This is what I'm at. And but the fear of, well, then, and she plays it out too, but my saying this will then impact my mother, my brother, my uncle. I'm like, okay, you cannot.
She's catastrophizing.
Yeah. And she could be right. Yeah. But I say to her, but the only person you can do this for is you. It doesn't matter if it then impacts those people because that person reacts poorly, and it goes back to the things I've said before about people who have like narcissistic qualities to them, right? They will react badly to, their bad behavior is what this is about, right? Their bad behavior gets you to have a response that they don't like, and then they essentially turn it around on you, which is that Darbo thing. They deny it, they attack you, they reverse. You become now the perpetrator, and they're the victim, and then the whole world comes to like a halt for the world,
And they select you because you'll play the game,
right? And if you play the game, you're sucked right in. But if you say, I'm not going to be pulled in, I'm not doing this, I'm not participating, it's way easier, but it's not easy to get there when you've had a full life of training. And I'm talking about like 16, 17, 18-year-old people
Yep.
coming in, and this person happens to be 21, but they've been trained for 21 years by these people in their adult life around them to succumb and submit to the guilting and
Yep.
the shaming and all these things. And that's, we have a culture of that.
Yep.
And to get away from that is hard, but that's why the first step is to focus on your own goal and your own value, because we keep returning, and this happens a lot with people.
Your client's family situation will be so much better in the truth of the situation, wouldn't they? In the long run.
I think in the long run, yes.
Yeah.
It's hard for her to see that. It's hard for people to see it because they're afraid of the unknown of whether it will or not. And, they're always like, well, it's so painful. I'm like, here's the road.
Yeah.
You're in a painful road anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it's people will dance with the devil that they know rather than go with the devil that they don't, because it could be painful. And I'm like, you're already in pain. So what's the difference? Why not change the pain, change the road, go down a different road that, might end, but I think there's so many layers in family life and friendship life that, if you peel away the onion layer that opens a wound, that people get afraid that, well, what if that doesn't close? Well, it might not, but you have to be able to sit with the uncomfortability of whatever that onion peels back. And then people aren't willing to peel back the onion because they're afraid of what they'll find underneath, or that the reaction that will come will be pungent and punitive and all those things. And people get worried about how will this, punitively damage me in some way. And you have to be able to sit with people might disconnect from you, or people might not be happy with you because you set a boundary. It really comes down a lot of times when it's about worrying about what other people think, that when you're worried about setting a boundary and having people then not like you.
Yeah.
And I always say, well, not everyone's going to like you. And it's hard when it's a family member, because so many people strive for, let's take parents, for example, no matter what, we're hopeaholics, right? Even if we have the worst guilting, shaming, parenting around us and whatever, and terrible toxicity and parent-child, adult-child relationships, we always want and hope for the parent to love us in the way that we need and deserve.
Right.
But not all parents are able to do that because they lack the capacity. And I teach this skill a lot with people that they're like, I hope that my mother, I hope that my father, I hope my grandparent will be, loving, kind, and all these things to me. And they just haven't been, but maybe this time. It's always maybe this time.
Yep.
If you're 40 and it hasn't happened and they're 70, it's not probably going to happen. The only person that can change is you. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to change yourself and not worry about whether or not the other person's going to change. And that's one of the skills that I teach a lot is, and it's a repetitive thing because people have such a hard time. It's the theme today. People have such a hard time with speaking and advocating for oneself to let themselves be relieved of their worry, because they keep having this mental state of, I'm only speaking so that the other person will change. You got to let go of the other person's going to change. It's got to be about speak your truth, put it out there, and know that you've put it out there. And then that's it.
But prioritizing your truth and putting it out there allows you to align with people who will align with it. And you're going to be happier in the long run.
Well, and that, okay. So that's part of my techniques today. Okay. So we do the focus on the goals and the values, and then jumping ahead a little bit, which would come a little bit later, but it's surround yourself with positive, productive people who support you and who get it. And if you don't have a lot of those, which people usually find one, maybe two, not people that are just going to collude with you and just jump on, because you might be wrong, right?
Yep.
So people that are just supportive of you and don't have the judgment. And, the best way, because this is a great way to stop worrying about what other people think, is by surrounding yourself with people who support you unconditionally. And
where you're safe.
And the majority of people that are in this worry zone of like anxiety and trauma and things like that, they surround themselves with people that are conditional I love you if you.
Yeah.
It's I'm being blatant, but sometimes it's very covert, but a lot of times it's overt. I love you if you do this. I will love you more. It's implied. If you act this way, I love you. If you are this,
Yeah.
you have this image, this persona, this thing, then you're more lovable. And so, I see kids go through this all the time with, coming up through, and then they become adults. I've been with kids 20 years. I see how that's happened. I've tried to help shape the parenting and things like that to get them into a space where the parents don't do that to them, and also to have some kind of good dialogue where there is unconditional positive regard and unconditional environments of love. And it's, you would think, people come in and say, I had a great childhood, and I'm always like, but you have anxiety. Anxiety doesn't mean you didn't have a great childhood, but the likelihood is there's some kind of conditionality to your upbringing. And it's hard to escape that, there's no perfect unconditional, because parents make mistakes. Some of the best parenting, though, is when people that are parents make mistakes and can say, I made a mistake right then at a 5-year-old level, or a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old, and be like, oh, mom made a mistake, or dad made a mistake. I'm sorry. It's, when you get the I'm perfect parent and you're not, and you're not living up to my perfectionism, now you're creating this environment that I'm talking about on one level. I mean, there's many ways of creating it, but that's one of those unconditional, not meeting the conditional needs of the unconditionality. But when you surround yourself with people who support you and who, so for example, I have several clients and people that I know in general that they're not connected to their family, right? People get disconnected. They're not connected. And they'll get a lot of feedback like, oh, you don't talk to your mom, you don't talk to your dad. Oh, but it's your mom and it's your dad. And my response to them is like, yeah. And you're the daughter, or you're the son. Like,
it's not the fault.
It's not
earned.
Exactly. It's like, right. There's got to be a point where it's not, I had someone tell me last week that, well, my parent expects that adult, they're the old school, that they think that I should go to them. And they've gotten to a point working with me that I'm not going to do that, because every time I do that, I sacrifice my integrity. And then it takes me a month to repair my brain to, and then they'll be, can we have 2 sessions this week? Because they're in emergency mode, and I find time.
You got time for that?
I was going to say, God knows. But they struggle with that whole piece of their self-acceptance. And then they get to that point of self-acceptance of like, I can say that you're my parent, or you're my whatever, or you're my brother or my sister, but that doesn't give you the right. I don't owe you because you have this title. And it comes back to, I don't owe you, and they don't owe you.
Right.
But if you want, if a parent, for instance, in these examples, if a parent wants respect, they have to show respect. And there's so many parents out there that are in this camp that
think they're entitled.
They think they're entitled to, because they gave birth to you. You owe them. Like, this is not how this works. But they're, I see it a little less than I used to, for sure, especially as the generations have shifted. I mean, we've had some other trends come up that are like, oh, I would say we go to the permissive indulgent side, which is not good. That the full on, I'm unconditionally not worried about anything, and therefore you're off running amok. That's not good.
Right.
But it's finding the balance in the authoritative, high positive regard, praise, and task requirement that's age appropriate and beneficial with praise. To give good unconditional love. But so many people don't have anything like that.
Can I check you on that term, unconditional love? Because my best relationships, my best friends are people who say, love you, mean it, but you're being an idiot.
Right.
And because then let's go get something to eat.
Right. Because that's the balance.
Exactly. So it's not unconditional that they accept everything you do and say.
Right.
It just means we're still tight.
Right. Exactly.
But you're being an idiot.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And being able to move past that, right? Like I have a specific person, like in my personal life, that I can say she's younger, and I was just having a conversation with her last night, and just being like, I'm going to tell you and it's still going to be fine, but I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And she'll like that. But I still love you and we're still going to be fine, but I just need to like be able to say like no bueno. No bueno.
Yeah.
But yes, and I think that what you point out with the balance of finding like the unconditional love is not just
the unconditional is
free
where
for
tight.
all. Right. Unconditional means I accept that you're like this, you do this, you whatever, but it's still maybe you got to do something different. And I'm still going to be there and I'm still going to love you and I'm not going to change. I'm not going to judge you. And that's the thing in the context of today's topic. It's I can be loved and not judged and still be loved at the same time, but someone can disagree with me or someone can, right?
Yep.
And that's hard to find.
Yeah.
That's very hard to find.
So valuable though.
It is. And when you connect with supportive people like that have the unconditional positive regard, right? They positively regard you regardless of, whatever. It lifts you up and it allows you to feel that I've talked about this many, many moons ago, but interdependence, like we don't want codependence where we have to depend on each other. Like I need you to need me to need you. Yeah. But we have that benefit of breaking away from being self-doubt and that's caused by outside perception of us and go into, oh my gosh, I have people who accept me and that feels good. And I don't have to explain myself and I don't have to feel bad about saying no or saying yes or the decisions I'm making because they're my decisions. Going back to the whole, like, how could you not talk to your parent? How could you not well, how do you know the story? And, or people that talk about like, you have to forgive. No, you don't. No, you don't. Yeah. You don't have to, and that's very controversial, right? Because when we talk about letting go of worry, people feel like I have to forgive. The whole concept of forgiveness and
is
misconstrued. And then the whole thing, it's very hard for people to wrap their head around self-forgiveness because a lot of my clients see it as like, well, I have to forgive myself because I blame myself and then they shame themselves. And that's what they're doing. But it's like, but what are you forgiving? You did nothing wrong. I see this a lot. Unfortunately, I see this a lot in sexual assault victims, survivors, I should say, that they will forgive themselves because they've been to a counselor before or someone in their lives that has said, you've got to forgive yourself. And I'm like, we're blaming an assault victim. And I'm going to say victim for this moment.
Why are you taking blame?
And so by implying, even though people are like, no, you just have to forgive yourself. It's like, forgive yourself for what? What do you? So I like to shift away from that and say, we have to find a way to manage the thoughts and the images that come up. I'm very pragmatic. This is the processing piece, right? Very much about how to process just the thoughts, images, or trauma response that comes up from X, Y, or Z to be able to manage our own selves. Stop thinking about the other person. Stop thinking about the other thing or the other people that might judge you for whatever. It's about how do you view the situation? Were you 12 and you didn't deserve that? And, because I don't think I've ever had an assault survivor come in and say to me out of the gate without serious therapy with me or with others, somehow that they lacked culpability. Like, no, they almost always come in and are like, well, if I knew better.
Really?
You were 8 or you were 15 or, I mean, I had a 13-year-old that was, I'm just being mindful of the demographics. So a young woman, underage minor, who was culled by a 30-plus-year-old teacher. And she had the Stockholm syndrome stuff because for a long time she protected him.
Yep.
And then it turned into, it was her fault. She took it on like, well, if I had known better or if I hadn't addressed that way. I'm like, he was 30 something years old. Yeah. He knew better. Yep. He knows better. Come on now. So it's, I'm giving the extreme example, but those are the kinds of things is that people get into. How do you forgive yourself? You don't have to forgive yourself. You didn't do anything wrong.
Well, I think the biggest misunderstanding with forgiveness is the difference between forgiveness and forgiving somebody. you forgive the reality
What do you mean by that?
of the sexual assault. Instead of wrestling with the sexual assault, you don't forgive them. You just forgive that it happened and try to.
I think that could be a way of
Try to
looking
move
at
that on.
Is I think it's moving
Forgiveness
on.
isn't letting someone else off the hook or giving them
Right.
permission.
And that's what people think of it as, is that forgiveness somehow is like giving absolution to the person.
Yeah,
I was reading a story yesterday about, I think this was in either Arkansas or somewhere down south, about a guy who raped a 15-year-old girl and she impregnated her. And because of the laws currently, she's having the child. And I had to reread this twice. I was like, seriously? She's struggling, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading it in some psychology thing because it's current going on. But he was sentenced to have to pay her $600 in restitution for raping her and impregnating her, and that he will get to have access to the child once it's born.
$600 lump sum?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
And so when we're talking about this, I'm thinking about...
how did they arrive at that figure?
I don't know. They didn't say. And $600 as restitution. And he gets to have access to the girl who's 15. And by the way, I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look. He's in his late 20s, early 30s, right?
Yeah.
Nothing else to my knowledge. I'm going to have to go back and read, but I did, because I was like, oh my God. But $600 to give restitution for the rape, and he gets to have access to the child once the child's born.
It's unbelievable.
Because she's being forced to have the child. And that's not what she wanted. But they won't, because where the state is. That's why I'm like, I can't remember which state. It's not Oklahoma, because I know that's, but I want to say it's Arkansas. But I was like,
take a drive.
Well, but there's resource and access and all that stuff. But, so she obviously, the parents, and they went to the accused, got him into whatever. And she ends up becoming a victim of, again.
Victim of the court.
She's talk about raped and then raped again.
Yeah. No, seriously.
It's just unbelievable. And and how does it go in the context of the worry about the worry today, right? Well, now you've got this worry for the rest of your life that you have to be able to sit with at a young age and learn a very hard lesson in life about how to trust a system, how to not feel betrayed, how to not worry about men abusing you. I mean, there's so many pieces here about, there's no consequence. This is right. No consequence for bad behavior. And it makes me itch. I start to itch.
Well, that's institutionalizing the worry.
Yeah. Well, so it's, it's a jump over to like, how do you get away from blame and shame? But then you have to be like, how do you forgive that? How do you walk? And it's not forgiveness. How do you walk away from someone that's now essentially was allowed to rape you, essentially, right? For lack of a better term, allowed to then pay you $600 for doing it, and now gets to be in your life.
Yeah.
By court mandate. What? Makes my eyes starting to twitch. I'm either low in magnesium or my eye just is twitching because it makes my eye twitch.
That's not a forgiveness scenario. That's an acceptance scenario.
Well, and that's the thing is, there was the reason why there was something in one of the articles, because I did a deep dive into this when I started reading it, because I was like, oh my God. But there was something about like someone wrote a piece in a little paragraph on like, how hard it will be to forgive this for her and all this. I'm thinking, this is not forgive. No. What? Like, this is a hard one to process. And these are the kind of things that people get into and worry about that they don't talk about, right? They sit with, they dwell on, it shapes their entire existence. And that's why I brought up like, okay, there's a system now of trust, betrayal, learn not to speak up, because in speaking up, this is what ended up happening.
There are situations like that are stonewalled, but how many? I mean, there are a lot of people dealing with situations that aren't nearly as stonewalled as that. Right. Well, and that's why I use the extreme, right? Yeah.
So in the basic life things of everyday people, right? It goes back to what I'm saying. Surround yourself with people that are going to support you. Obviously, find your own value. What do you value? What is your goal? What do you want to get out of XYZ scenario? How to get away from how other people think about you. Challenge yourself to other new things. Get yourself out of the environment. Sometimes it's, geographic change. Sometimes, that's not a fix, but I often tell people, like, find a different area to be in. Stop worrying about people's opinions of you about something that happened. I have one client that totally sits in her past of, well, I said this 30 years ago when I was in high school, and I'm going to see this person for the first time again and at a reunion. And do you think, I'm like, they're not going to remember.
No.
They're not thinking about this. But this is a constant thing for people. They worry about the worry, and it's like, how do you build confidence in that?
The bigger problem is how she constructed that guilt.
Right. It's about
the guilt, than that particular instance.
Right. So it's about deconstructing guilt.
Yeah.
In general, about teaching what guilt is. Guilt is that feeling that you have a perception that you're going to be judged. Doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, but you perceive that you're going to be perceived as doing something wrong or having done something wrong.
Yep.
And that's childhood, that it's side eye look of, like, you're doing something wrong, or don't you dare, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's done in childhood, but it's perpetuated by you against yourself as you go forward. That's what you have to, that's the cycle you have to try to break.
Exactly. But by the time people start working on that, there's so much later.
It's so ingrained.
It's so ingrained.
Yeah.
And it's I call it the train tracks. So we talk about the roads and in our off-roading and stuff like that. These are train tracks in the brain that are neurologically set, because that's how they're wired, right? We get wired into thinking about that, and it becomes so natural. And that's why people say, how do I stop worrying about the thing? And I'm like, you've got to go to the basics. And people, it's really actually a simple thing, but people get so caught up in, like, yeah, but I want it fixed right now, that they're not worried, that they're not thinking about how to just step by step it. I'm like, you're 50 years old, or you're 60 years old. You have to do, like, we have to make a list.
It took you 50 years to get here. It's not
right. You walked in the woods all this time.
Yeah.
Now we got to walk back out. Now it's not going to take 50 years to get out, but if you don't stay to the plan and you're too caught up in, like, instant gratification, you're going to keep coming back to what I hear a lot is, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you've been doing it for a week. You did it once. You made a short list. We haven't surrounded ourselves with new people. We haven't challenged ourselves to try new experiences, to get away from people that would be conditional, like, thinkers. We didn't put ourselves in an environment where we'd have success. Like, talk to a new set of people, join a class, give yourself a place where you'd have self-esteem, find a creative outlet, join a gym, things to get rid of some of that. Also, knowing the other big thing is identifying your own triggers. People they stay away from their own. This is the other piece of this, my 4-part series. Identifying your own triggers, and triggers not meaning, how do I describe this? It's part of breaking the worrying game down, or the worrying scenario down, is being aware of what validation we seek from others. Right. And that's a trigger, right? That we seek validation, especially if we grew up in a household where we were criticized and were given a lot of feedback. That wasn't really feedback. It was just really critical narratives, and constructing a critical narrative about ourselves based on other people's implication and or direct verbal towards us.
Back to processing, right?
Yes.
What is the fear here? What is it you are worried about?
And so we look for validation from the world around us because we don't self-validate. And in doing that first step, the focus on your value and your goal to yourself and being true to yourself authentically, if we can do that, then we can get further away from having to worry about validation from external. And if we're self-validating, that we can assure ourselves that we are okay from internal. But man, that takes, when you've got someone ingrained in that neural track, it takes a lot, because once we identify that we are seeking a validation and we're seeking reassurance, then we can address thought by thought by thought, which is hard because people don't like to have to look at those thoughts because they're painful, they're hard, they're all the things, right?
Till you get to a certain age where you just drop that caring altogether.
Yeah, I think so. that does come up because you and I've had this conversation on many shows in the past about like you get to a certain age and it's like you don't care anymore. But is it because you get to the age or because you've done the work or because you've
Hard to tell.
I think it's hard to tell for some people because I think some people haven't done the work, but they do get to an age and they're just like, F it. I don't care anymore. But I think by and large, more people do a lot of work, whatever that looks like for them on how to actually, say I'm good enough. And I find that a lot of people, I have a great book. I have my whole class read it. I give it to tons of clients in terms of like suggesting it. It's Will I Ever Be Good Enough? That's the title of it. Will I Ever Be Good Enough? Growing Up, Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. And there's one for Sons of Narcissistic Mothers as well. Mothers always get blamed. This is a book obviously written by, but it's, they have one. I think that the writer on this might have written one about dads too, but it's really, it's that concept of you're worrying because you always think you're not good enough.
Yep.
And
because you've always been told
because you're always either told or it's implied societally, in addition to growing up in an environment, whether it's school, sports, social, and at home.
Often with society, though, isn't it hypersensitivity? Or
say more.
Well, you say you're always told by society you're not good enough. Maybe that's not what society is saying, but that's what you're listening to. That's what you're hearing. That's what you're tuned into.
Well, you're tuned into that because you've been predisposed to it prior. Like it's not just all of a sudden. Society really starts playing havoc once you hit 6 years old on, because that's really when you get more exposed, like kindergarten, first grade. But you're already set in that motion because something has already set you up.
But outside of 7th and 8th grade, society doesn't care.
Well, and when you get into that like teenage, middle school and up, it's like the spotlight effect. And that's like when really you're looking, that's when good parenting and good, solid, unconditional, positive regard is so important, because then you're not reinforcing the spotlight effect of everyone's looking at me and I have no self-esteem. And, you get the, oh, I'm dating someone at 13 and we break up and no one's ever going to love me again. Like, what is going on? And, psychologically, we know exactly what's going on.
But your society is hyper judgmental in the 7th and 8th grade.
Yes.
But when you're 20 something, society doesn't care. They're not paying attention to you.
Well, that's why I always tell kids, like when they're in junior high and high, I always say, like, when you get to college, nobody cares.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always going to find someone.
Yeah.
I say, but it changes so much because people don't care, because they don't think about you. They're not thinking about you. In that moment, you might walk by and they might be like, oh, you don't look so great. Your hair's funny. You smell, you're ugly, you're fat. I don't know. Right. But but it's passing. Right. Nobody cares. Nobody.
Just everybody's in a life raft.
Well, I've said so many times over the 30 years to clients, I'm like, I always say, don't take this the wrong way. You're very special, but you're not that special.
It's true.
And they laugh usually because it's, and I'm like, because you think you are, and that's where you're looking for the validation that somehow you're this special. You're a special case. No one ever has it like this. No one ever thinks like this. No one ever has had it this bad. No one's ever had this experience. Like, yes, they have. Yep. And no one's thinking about you. You're thinking about it way too much. But that's a trigger about,
and they come to you a week later and recounting the incident. It's like that you've lived with this incident now which was probably customer service.
Right. Well, exactly. And it's like, and then you're, it's like you're living above the surface of what you don't know what's going on in another person's life and assuming they're thinking about you, but nobody's thinking about you. I was just saying, so I was trying to say this to a client yesterday who's struggling heavily with something that's going on in their life, about you think they're thinking about you. And when you bring it up, they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
But when you don't, they don't. And this client's contention is, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. I love that. You don't understand. In my world, as if I don't have the world, right? This is a very different client. In my world, everybody's thinking and talking about those things because it's a very socioeconomically elitist kind of, I'm like, no one's thinking about you. We're not on Vanderpump Rules. We're not in Wives, I was going to say Street Wives of LA, whatever the hell the show is about. Like, those are not real. I mean, they're real for them, but that's not normal. Those are Petri dish, not normal. That's made for TV crap.
And anyone who's locked into that fire, you personally, has 1,000 other fires. So,
yeah.
So they're not paying attention to you.
Right. And if they are, it's because you're front and center for that moment. And
yeah.
that's it. And then when you're
Yeah.
out, they're not thinking about you. They don't care.
Right. They're lighting other fires.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is like from like young kids all the way up through to my oldest client right now, who's 78 years old right now. This is the theme, the worry about what are you thinking about me?
Yeah.
You know, nothing. I'm not thinking about you. Don't think about you. Because that's one of the things, and when I'm training my students to become counselors, you know, they always ask me like, how do you not think about client? How do you leave it in the office? I'm like, easy. I walk out the door.
Yeah.
Like it's always, I think, innately a skill that I had, but then we're just, you know, you detach, not disconnect, you detach, because not my issue. I always say you can leave it all here in this room, but I don't take it home with me. And I have a lot of clinicians who their Achilles heel is that I do supervision with, or I work with, that they get very ingrained in their head to take it home with them. And I'm like, no.
Well, we're back to the alter ego.
Right.
You step into it. You step into a role.
Right.
Step out of the role.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's not, you know, that's why when I go away on vacation and certain people in my life will tell people what I do, I'm like,
yeah, because it forces you back into the role.
Well, it forces you into the role. And it's also like, you can't
be in the role you want to be in.
You just can't. Right. Because then people are like, oh, I'm like, that's lovely. So, I mean,
such a huge skill set, just being able to, you know, turn things on and turn things off.
Right. And and then people are like, well, you know, even though we make jokes about the whole emergency thing, is like, if I have an emergency at any given time, I jump right back into the role.
Sure.
And then as soon as I've cleared it, I clear the queue, it's gone.
Get skilled at it.
Right. But people are like, do you think about it? No. Why? Because I don't need to. Because not my life. It's not my life. It's like if someone breaks their arm and they come in and I'm a surgeon, I fix it, they go out the door, I don't think about that arm anymore.
Yep.
I'm on to the next thing. Yep. I'm not like, that's not on my radar anymore.
And largely that's how the world works.
Yeah. It's like, why do I need to think about that? Now I do know people obviously get stuck. Clinicians do get they have a boundary issue, and people have boundary issues, and they get
talked about vets,
and they get they get very enmeshed and all that stuff. That's not a me thing.
Yeah.
And so I try to teach people, like, if you set good boundaries, that's not a thing. That doesn't become a thing, because you have the ability to. Then I don't take on the worry about having to worry. You know, if I have an emergency, no joke, if I have an emergency, I take care of that right in that moment so that there is no worry.
Yeah.
Like, so that's just like in life. If there's something going on, and it took me a long time to not think and worry about like I was trained hard. I was in gymnastics.
Yeah.
Gymnastics is all subjective about like judging you. I grew up being judged. You're judged from you started at 10. And every day is a 10. And by the end of the day, if you're lucky, if you're at a 1, you're great.
Yeah.
Like if you still are on the scale, great. Because it was every day growing up from like little, like 2 and 3 years old, it was, you're not good enough.
Yep.
That's how I was trained.
Sure.
You're never good enough. You're never good enough. You're never good enough. You're never good enough. And it took me into my 30s, even though I'm still 27, it took me into my 30s to finally go, I'm done with what you think about me. I don't care. Which anybody that's friends with me and you know that I don't do guilt.
Yeah.
People are, try to like guilt me. I'm like, oh, girl, I had
great space.
I was trained.
Yeah.
And I trained myself right out of that. Guilt will not work on me.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, that's nice. But
people do a lot of the.
I double down now. Like I went in the reverse direction, like, because I was trained so hard to respond to guilt. Now I'm like, I double down into not going to move me.
People have a lot of these skills, but they don't necessarily understand they have it. It's funny. It's weird things like if you're a Patriots fan, those 4 hours on Sunday,
right?
You just drop everything else. You don't care what other people think during those 4 hours on Sunday. You're just focused on what you're doing. Car rides we talked about last week. There are certain places people
can decompress,
can set things down, and,
right?
You just got to expand on that skill set,
right? Mm-hmm.
And make sure what you're worrying about is worthwhile. The 3 hours, right?
The 3 hours, and that's the rational, reasonable, and realistic, which goes back to how to process something.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about deconstructing like some whole situation. It's just looking at how am I thinking about it right now? Even when I say it to people, is it rational? People will find something and I'm like, that's not fact.
Yeah.
That you have to have fact to be able to move that you're supposing, you're assuming, your presupposition, like you're doing all these things, but that's not, they're like, well, but they might think this. No, that's not fact.
Yeah.
How do you know that? I don't. Okay. That's fact, right? So I guess in wrapping up, my final thoughts on this is like, so worrying too much about how others perceive us is an emotional drain, right? It takes that energy. It keeps us from reaching our full potential, having self-esteem. But thankfully, it doesn't have to be that way, which is hard for people to believe. But by focusing on your own goals, your own value, how you want to challenge yourself with maybe new experiences, surrounding yourself with people that are positive or productive, who are unconditional, we create a better mental health space. We create an energy saver space, and ultimately live a more overall fulfilling life. And so, don't let anyone back you down essentially from being your authentic self. It's harder. It's easy to say, harder to do, but still keep trying to live in your authenticity. Go out there, show the world who you are, who you mean to be. And if you need more support, obviously reach out to somebody like me, reach out to a life coach, someone who's certified, not someone that gets it offline in 2 hours, by the way. And chat with people that are able to talk about this, or listen to good podcasts on this, or I go away from like the self-help books unless you can really find one that has like the tips I just gave you. But support yourself. Go internally to, I can validate my own self. Stop looking for other people to validate you. That will come if you do it for yourself first, because then you'll feel more confident that you've got it yourself.
My hint, the first few sources you seek out, whether it be a friend or a podcast or whatever it is,
right.
If it doesn't work, keep going.
Right, exactly.
Because what happens is there's all these modes, and it was funny because I laugh at it now because the secret hit for me. You got to find you got to find the thing that lands for you.
Yes.
And then you can take off from there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's the same message. They're all doing the same message, but someone's going to put it in a way that just really lands.
Right. And it's kind of like when your parent tells you something and then you come to a therapist or you go to a doctor and they tell you the same thing and all of a sudden it clicks, right? Yeah. And parents always go, I said the same thing and they didn't listen to me. I'm like, because it's different context. It's the same thing as the book. You might not find it in this one, or you might not find it in that podcast, but you're eventually going to hit it. And
because the podcast isn't judging you. Your parent, you feel like your parents are.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
you're in that filter.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So, okay. So we're closing out the month of July. Mm-hmm. And we're going into August next week, and it will be the month of August and the month of you in August, which will change because now we're getting ready, even though it's so weird to say, it's the shifting time.
Uh-oh.
I know it is.
Too quick.
I know, but it's not over, but we're shifting. We're starting to shift, right? It's in the lateness of the summer, even though it feels like it just started. But
feels like it's a height.
But try to really, this is a good skill today, what we talked about, a really good skill for the year of you, truly about how to go and be in your authentic self and live you and do you first, and take care of you. So on that note, have a fantastic week. Go out and enjoy your northeast weather that it's 105 degrees out here and sweat. There we go. All right, you guys have a great week. I'll see you next week.